Hello, everybody. Welcome along. Cricket Badger podcast time, looking back at the test match in Multan, where England have done the impossible. What a performance by Ollie Pope and the England boys out there, and to concede 556 in the first innings and go on and win convincingly is something quite special. I think we've seen in Multan over the last 4 point whatever days. We only got very briefly into day 5, didn't we? A little bit of resistance this morning from Pakistan, but England success. James, back with you after surgery. Thank you very much for those cricket badges out there that have sent me good wishes over the last few weeks. I'm getting stronger. I'm getting more flexible and getting out and about a little bit more now. So getting there. But sitting in a chair doing a podcast with Lucas, our Australian fan badger, is a very easy task. And talking about England, Lucas, winning convincingly, absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, there's two ways to look at this. One, we can say that Pakistan were completely dreadful, and two, we could say, well, for a team that was chasing 500 and to win by an innings, mind you, an innings, is quite remarkable. I've never seen that. I've been watching cricket for a long time, and I've never ever seen that kind of performance. Or that kind of result in my life. Just amazing by England, especially by two individual batsmen, which I'm sure we'll get into, but just something very special, but very poor from the opposition, in my opinion.
I mean, you say you've never seen anything like that in your life. Nobody has, because it's the first time ever that a team scored over 500 in the first innings and got on to lose a test match by an innings. Those that have done it before and ended up losing have kind of made, at least batted again, made the opposition bat again. But for England to put their foot down like they did do, strangely enough, though, I mean, we've had a lot of chats about Bazball. We've had a lot of chats about the rights and wrongs of it, and there's more rights than wrongs, I think, if in all honesty. A lot of my traditionalist values and the kind of balking at the positivity of Bazball, I think they have tailored it a little bit as well and kind of taken off some of the rough edges. A lot of that's gone. I think it's England are saving Test cricket, aren't they? They are saving Test cricket. Say that tongue in cheek, but they are playing a brand of cricket which is very entertaining. And you mentioned, I mean, we could go through the records one by one that were broken in Multan, particularly yesterday. But that's a podcast in itself. By the time I finished the list, everybody would have turned off because there are so many records. But the big ones, really, 4-5-4 stand for the fourth wicket between Harry Brook 317 and Joe Root 262. Just astronomical from the two Yorkies out there. And the fact that Joe Root has gone past Sir Isaac Cook in terms of becoming now, I mean, we knew we've known for ages that's going to happen at some stage, but it's happened in this test that Joe Root is now standing alone at the top of the England run charts, at least, and now 5th place in the overall standings, and has got a little bit of ground to make up before he gets into the next batch of players, but they are there for the taking for him. And then it's it's a matter of time, isn't it? How long will Joe Root stay keen and eager, and how long will he maintain the standards that he's maintaining? Can he chase down Sachin Tendulkar? And having known Rooty, I mean, I saw the Sky guys talking about it. They basically said, well, if he stays hungry and if he stays in love with cricket, then it's there for him. And having known him a while and seen him as a youngster coming through at Yorkshire, of cricketers that I've known, very few, if any, have got the passion for the game who are genuine cricket badgers like Joe Root is, because he loves it. And I think it is a matter of time. He will at some stage chase down Sachin Tendulkar, because I can't see him retiring until his standards drop and he thinks he's not any use to England anymore. And that seems like a long way away at the moment, Lucas, because he is rightly number 1 in the world in the ICC rankings and playing some fantastic cricket.
Yeah, it does seem a long way away, but at the same point, you can easily lose your motivation very quickly. We've probably seen that with a couple of guys in Test cricket. Part of that Fab Four, I think Kane Williamson, Steve Smith might have lost that passion a little bit. But as long as Root's doing this, I don't see him losing any passion. He doesn't play a lot of white ball cricket much for England, which also does help. He can just focus on the one format really, where the others I just mentioned, they kind of want to play a little bit of everything here and there, and mentally it can drain you playing. We forget cricket is our life, is our passion, but it can mentally drain you very, very quickly. Playing a lot of matches, giving it everything every day, which Joe Root does. He gives it everything. He doesn't leave anything behind. It can zap you very quickly, especially if you're playing a lot of test matches. England, they play a lot of test matches, which I don't have any problem about it, for the record. So to stay hungry for as long as he has, as you said, he's now the #1 test player in the world. That's rightly so. That can't be taken away with him. I don't think you'd find one person that would disagree with that. And still scoring hundreds for fun, no matter where he goes, minus Australia. I think that one there, the Ashes. I think the Ashes is a big series for him, a very big series, because if he has a poor Ashes series, doesn't get that 100, we sit back and we have a different conversation. We'll say, well, he's a tremendous player, but never quite hit that record in Australia compared to a Smith, compared to a Kohli who has in England. But at this point in time, he is the world #1 batsman by a mile, and I mean by a mile. It's not even close. 3-4 years ago, he was around the Williamson route. Kohli, he's gone up big time, not just a little bit, skyrocketed. It's not even a debate anymore.
I was looking I was looking at the Test run scorers in 2024 yesterday, and Joe Root is miles ahead of anybody else. England have played more matches. It has to be said. There is that caveat, but he's averaging over 60 and scoring runs against everybody he faces. Harry Brook is another one averaging over 60 this calendar year. Who was the other one? There was it was a Jaiswal from India. He's got the highest average, just slightly higher than Joe Root, Jaiswal, for the matches he's played. And then obviously Kamindu Mendis, who's come in and set the world on fire for Sri Lanka. They're the kind of four standouts this calendar year in terms of batting. And obviously the Harry Brook 317 has made his stats look a lot better than they were a week ago. Yeah. But they're the players that have really kind of burnt up 2024. And Joe Root is standing very much on top of that list at the moment. I was interested to see, I don't know if you saw the post-match interview with Harry Brook and Joe Root, Ian Ward and Nasser Hussain chatting to them after the play, and Joe Root talking about Harry Brook. They're asking each other. I often find that when you're talking to players, it's better to ask a player to describe somebody else than it is for them to describe themselves, because players are very reluctant to big themselves up. And Joe Root was asked about from Nasser Hussain. He'd said to Nasser few years ago, the one player you're not talking about that you should be talking about is Harry Brook at Yorkshire. He's going to be huge. And Root said, yeah, you could see it. It was a matter of time. He surprised me a little bit with how quickly he's matured and he's kicked on to this level. But he said, what was his words? He said something like, for somebody with so little common sense off the park, he's got such cricketing intelligence off it. On it, which was quite a bit of a backhanded compliment. Harry Brook was sniggering away, but there's obviously a very good relationship with those two, and that 4-5-4 stand between the two of them was colossal. It was a road, though. I mean, let's be honest about it. That pitch was a batting paradise, but to score in kind of 40-degree heat. To bat that long and to score that many runs and to maintain fitness, stamina, concentration, keep your technique going all the way through is quite some ask, isn't it? Because Harry Brook was asked, actually, because when he took some time out when his grandma sadly died, and he worked a lot on his fitness, and they asked him, would you have been able to do that 2 years ago? And he said, no, I'd have probably got to 150 and then slogged it in the air. Because I'd have got tired, but he kicked on and scored 317. It helps when you're going at a run of ball and you're getting the runs quickly. It's quite some ask, isn't it, to bat that long? That's the highest stand by any pair in English history. They went past was it Cowdrey and Peter May, I think, 67 years ago. They had 411 on the board. That 4-5-4 has eclipsed that and puts them right at the top end of the England partnership records. And it was a testament to their talent, but also a testament to their stamina and their perseverance and their tenacity, wasn't it?
Look, I think the main talking point when they were scoring these runs was, well, from what I saw, was Brian Lara. Can they catch Brian Lara? And what you just mentioned, the reason why it's so hard, because you don't. There's no really rest. There's no real rest. You're not resting in between 2-3 days and then coming back. It's so physical. A lot of people forget that cricket is a very physical game. A lot of people forget that. They think, well, look how England are doing it very easily. How can Joe Root was cramping at the end of day 2, halfway through day 3? How can they be cramping up when they're just batting? They don't forget, it's very physical. They're running between a lot of wickets. And what I noticed with that, there was hardly any sixes. So they were doing this the hard way as well. Running between wickets very hard, turning the 2s into 3s, turning the singles into the 2s. It's a very physical manner. To do that for 6 hours, basically it's 6 hours a day, 2 hours each session, give or take, depending on over rate. To do that for 6 hours, they're out there for almost 2 days. That's 12 hours of batting. 12 hours of batting. It's ridiculous. That's absolutely ridiculous.
And the other thing as well, Lucas, Joe Root had been on the park all the way through Pakistan's innings as well, and he was in quite quickly. I think he only missed, I can't remember how long it was, but it was only a very short period of time that he was sitting up in the stands before he came out to bat again. So, he'd been out in the dirt, when Pakistan were racking up 5-5-6, and then came straight back out almost to bat again. So made it even more impressive, I think. And he was still trotting around. They looked tired. Don't get me wrong; they did look knackered by the time and it was a tired shot, I think, that got Harry Brook out in the end. But I saw I think Atherton said on the commentary that the Hutton's 364, which is England's highest Test score, he could see them allowing Harry Brook to get to that. But I was thinking, my first reaction to that was, well, if he gets to 365, say, and he's broken England's highest Test score, they ain't going to wave him in then. They're going to say, well, you've got 20 minutes to try and get past Lara, because you're not going to bring somebody off when they got to 365 and not allow him to actually have a crack at Brian Lara, are you?
No, absolutely. Well, you'd be pretty stiff if you're batting for that long, James, and they don't give you that world record chance. I'd be pretty stiff. Incidentally, Tim Payne did that to David Warner, incidentally against Pakistan as well, at Adelaide Oval, where David Warner was on 3-3-3, just bet Bradman's record. Tim Payne told him, "No, come in." I don't think David Warner was pretty impressed by that. But when he was actually batting for 2, he was opening, so it's even worse. He was literally from ball 1. But no, to do that, as you mentioned, it's also humid. It's not like where it's Australia where it's dry, or England where it's dry. It's humid. The sweat that comes off you. I saw a photo of Joe Root, Joe Root's clothes on the boundary, just absolutely soaked, with all sweat in that, because it was that humid.
They missed a trick though. He should have assembled those clothes in the way he'd have worn them, because it would have made it look like he just disappeared underneath them, wouldn't it? Because I mean, Shaheen Sharafridi batted for a little bit at the end of Pakistan's innings, and he was not in there long. I mean, some people sweat more than others, but the sweat was dripping out the top of his helmet. So it was crazy. I've got a bit of a theory as well, where England's 2 best players batting wise are obviously Joe Root and Harry Brook at the moment. They're the 2 that are scoring runs left, right, and centre. And I think you mentioned England's calendar and the fact that they are playing a lot of Test matches. Both of those 2, for different reasons, have taken time out of the game and come back better for it. Joe Root, obviously with COVID, when COVID struck, it was noticeable that he, I've seen him interviewed since, and he said he did a lot of work on his game whilst he was kind of down in lockdown, looked at how Kane Williamson, Virat Kohli, etc. played and how they accumulated their runs, tried to learn, watched a few videos and learned from them, and came back and, as a cricket badger, was desperate to get back on the park and made the most of it, and came back looking stronger, and obviously benefited, as much as you can do from that COVID situation. Harry Brook, as I mentioned, his nan passed away, and he took some time out of the game to mourn and look after his family, which is quite right. But in that period, I think he thought about the game a lot, and he realised he needed to get fitter. and did a lot of work on his fitness and came back a little bit of a different, in obviously better shape, and has benefited from that break. And I think it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world with England having so many Test matches coming, and obviously there's big series that you're never going to drop your best players for, but for some series, I can see them saying to a Joe Root or a Harry Brook or any of them, it's not going to be against you if you take a break. We'll work with you and we'll kind of plan this out so that you're not all taking a break at the same time. But I don't think it does anybody any harm to have 2 months off and spend a bit of time with the family, work on the game, think about things, and come back fresh.
No, it does. It doesn't. It doesn't hurt at all taking time off. I don't want to bring this up, but when Steve Smith had that long time off and David Warner came back with absolute vengeance, in that remarkable Ashes series, the Don Bradman Ashes series that Steve Smith had. Not that I recommend taking breaks because of that, but look, it does help taking time off. It can clear your head. Sometimes it can get a bit emotional. Test cricket, it tests you emotional, physically as well, and mentally. And as you said, when you're playing Test matches 14, 15 times a year, there's a lot of expectation on your shoulders. Now, Joe Root might have scored a million runs, but the problem is he's still got that expectation. No, come on, Joe, you got to keep going. You got to keep going. So taking time off away from that expectation, emotionally and mentally, is not a bad thing at all. It probably is recommended. A lot of bowlers also go through that as well. I know on a previous show when we talked about mental health and all that kind of stuff, that it can get to you emotionally, and it's good to have a break. I took a break. So no, it's certainly not a bad thing. Anyone that says, well, you're taking breaks, you blah blah blah, well, they don't know what they're talking about. So I don't blame Joe Root, don't blame Harry Brook or anyone that wants to take breaks from Test cricket. Hell, they deserved it, especially Joe Root.
I think just if you kind of equate it to normal life, people have their summer holidays, go to Spain or whatever for 2 weeks and come back, batteries recharged, feeling fresher and probably better at work as a result of that. And it's no different, is it? It's the same for cricketers. No. Tim's been in touch. Tim WD's been in touch. He says Australia would have drawn that match. And he's probably right. I think probably most teams, other than England, on that road would have basically maybe batted a little bit more conservatively to just try and get parity. And the draw would have been very much inked in from very early on in that match. As soon as you saw the first session, you think, well, this is going to be a draw, and probably wouldn't have gone against that. Whereas England forced that pressure onto Pakistan, and scoreboard pressure is huge, isn't it? Because that pitch hadn't changed a huge amount, but because Pakistan had been out there for 2 days, had been witnessing Joe Root and Harry Brook just stroking them around and scoring those runs, and then realised they were 200 and whatever it was behind on the first innings after scoring 556. When they went in after scoring 556, they'd have been thinking, job's a good one. We can't lose this now. But England made them lose it. And, starting again, and obviously with Abdullah Shafiq getting that one that kept low from Chris Woakes' first ball, that just set the tone, didn't it? And Pakistan were never in the match from there on. And that scoreboard pressure and that kind of mental disintegration, as Joe Root put it in the interview, but it's just demoralising Pakistan. The writing was on the wall for Pakistan really in that second dig, wasn't it? They've not got a good record second time around anyway in the last couple of years, but they were up against it as soon as England went past them.
They've got, and I don't mean this in a negative way, I don't mean to take the PWI here, but I've noticed with Pakistan, their attitude is terrible when they are losing. It's shocking. When they were bowling in the set, when they were bowling, I find it. I think they get negative too quickly, way too quickly. Now I saw on day 4 that there were Pakistan players arguing. Now I'll be careful with my words here because I don't want people to get the wrong idea. But I saw 4 different Pakistan players, I won't name names, that were not the captain. Right, you're the captain of that team. Now, I don't care if someone's thinking about their dinner or cars or whatnot. You have a responsibility to be in that conversation. Think, oh, what are you thinking? What are you doing, guys? What are you thinking here? How do we get them out? What are your plans? What are your plans? What does that look like? It's your responsibility as a captain to do that. Now, let's look at England when they were fielding. You didn't see their heads go down. You didn't see Joe. At no point did you see Joe Root or Harry Brook or Jack Leach in a huddle without Ollie Pope saying, "Oh, blah blah blah." On this, I saw that too often with Pakistan. Everyone was in a huddle except Masood, who is the captain, and I think that's happening too often. Happened in the Bangladesh series, and in the second test, where there were Rizwan shouting and whatnot, anyone but Masood. I think that's a very bad attitude, in my opinion. You're the captain. It's your responsibility as a captain to say, right, just grab the shreds, let's get in the huddle. What are we thinking? And I didn't see that once from Masood. I saw it from other players. I think they just dropped their heads way too quickly. I think that's a huge problem with Pakistan's attitude. But look what I just said. Look at England. Did you see any of them drop their heads? They were getting, their bowlers were getting just as much as Pakistan, albeit at a slower rate. They still made 500. At no point did you see England lose the plot, argue with themselves. I think that happens way too quickly with this team.
I was actually quite impressed by England. I thought Ollie Pope led them well.
Yeah.
And their heads didn't drop. And the biggest testament to that was the final session on day one, where they really did reel Pakistan back in. And by the end of day one, it looked after two sessions that Pakistan were going to be miles ahead at the end of day one. And by the end of day one, I thought it was probably on as even, because England had really stuck to their task well, taken wickets and kind of dried up the runs. And really impressive, I thought, from England towards the end of day one there. And take a very quick break, because we're going to pay homage to manscaped.com, the sponsors of the Cricket Badger podcast. If you quote Badger on manscaped.com, you can get yourself 20% off and free shipping. And there's some very good stuff on there.
If men were squares, shaving would be easy, because a flat surface is perfect for a traditional razor. But we're not squares.
What?
Presenting Manscaped's new Dome Shaver Pro. Because we're not flat, we have curves, we have balls, we have round. Where most blades are created for flat surfaces, the Dome Shaver Pro is designed specifically for your big round head. With 5 double-track skin-safe blade heads and Manscaped's Flex Adjust technology, you'll be able to shave your head faster and more efficiently than ever before without the fear of nicks or cuts. And yes, of course it's waterproof. This is Manscaped. So go ahead and enjoy that big, bold beauty. Embrace the spherical essence of your existence. Grab life by the bald. Shop now at manscaped.com.
Indeed. And thank you very much to manscaped.com for their continued support of the Cricket Badger podcast. It is very much appreciated. Take a look at it, because it is some really good stuff on there. And manscaped.com is where you need to go. Quote Badger for 20% off and free shipping. Back to the first test, though. And we should mention we're also on Gaurav Ayan's YouTube channel. So hello to Gaurav if you're watching. And we are talking about England's victory against Pakistan. Let's go back into Pakistan, because you've been relatively close to Jason Gillespie, because he was in charge of South Australia for a while. I know him from his time at Yorkshire, both as a player and as a coach. And the one thing about Dizzy is he is a very positive individual. He will, he's a glass is half full kind of guy. He will talk to his team, and he will look for the positives in everything. He will. One of his big phrases was "control the controllables." If it's out of your control, don't fret. Don't fret about it. And he is a really good guy, Dizzy. He's got his work cut out with that Pakistan side, hasn't he? Because, as you say, they can get fractures very quickly. They're on a bad run where often turn in on themselves too quickly, as you say. And Dizzy's positivity in that dressing room, I think, is much needed. He needs to kind of gel them together. They need to. I saw somebody message me the other day saying Pakistan cricket needs to get an identity. We know with England what their identity is. We know exactly how England are going to play. We know what their motivation is. They don't do draws. They're not happy to lose, but they'll take a loss if it is the consequence of going for a win. Whereas Pakistan just seem to kind of bumble through a test and see where they get to and work out from there. I think Shan Masood's quite a quiet guy. I think he's also Yorkshire captain. Don't know Shan. I've never met Shan, but there's a lot of respect for him at Yorkshire. But it's you talking about huddles and non-captains chatting and deciding tactics with the captain elsewhere and stuff. That comes a little bit from, well, two things: not winning, because Pakistan, I don't think have won a home test since 2021, which is another caveat to England's success because everybody's beaten Pakistan. But also the fact that they change leaders both on and off the park, coaches, chief execs, directors of cricket, whoever, in the PCB, but captains on the park, they're changed every 5 seconds, it feels. And if you haven't got I always think if you've got a team that's struggling a little bit, you need to appoint somebody that you can think can do something about that. So whether that's Jason Gillespie off as the head coach, whether that's Shan Masood as captain, and then you need to invest in them. You need to show trust in those people and allow them to build that team in their image, however that is, whether it's playing negative cricket, playing positive cricket, however it is, and allow them a few years to actually kind of make it right and get some wins. Pakistan cricket seems to lurch from one extreme to another and never really gets any consistency.
Look, we'll start at the top with so they've just appointed their new coach, Jason Gillespie, and my opinions on him, don't worry about that. He's not a coach of South Australia anymore. I've been passionate about that, not just this show, but Talkback Radio in Australia. Look, I feel bad for him. He's in a no-win situation because I think he's in a cricket nation that is rather more politics than actual doing what he wants. I think when push comes to shove, I think he would get overturned compared to Australia, compared to England, New Zealand. I think it's a very hard place to coach in because of politics. And right now, they've got problems, Pakistan. They've got problems everywhere in their top order, middle order, captaincy. And I think personally that they'll look someone to blame. And I think I don't want to see that to Jason Gillespie. He was a hero of mine growing through the golden generation. I've got absolutely no problem with him whatsoever. A hero of mine, and a very underrated bowler. He doesn't get talked about much in Australian cricket compared to a Warne, a McGrath, a Lee. Different reasons for Lee's pace. A Stark, a Hazelwood. He doesn't get talked about much. He was a world-class cricketer, Jason Gillespie, and deserves respect. And I think
look at his record, Lucas. Just look at his record. Dizzy's record, if you actually kind of hold it up in isolation of the ones you've just mentioned, is exceptional in Test cricket. He's
right there.
And as I say, I know him. He's been a guest on the Cricket Badger podcast a few times, and obviously know him from his time at Yorkshire. And he's a lovely guy. Really is.
Absolutely. I've met him before. He's fantastic.
Yeah, he's one of the very, very best. 259 wickets in Test cricket, an average of 26, and really did play that role absolutely perfectly in an excellent team. He was certainly was nowhere near a weak link. He was a very strong link behind Glenn McGrath and behind Shane Warne.
Yeah. If he played for any other nation, he'd be right up there. But because of McGrath, Lee, all that. But I feel he is the one that would get used as a scapegoat, in my opinion, because of politics. Right? I think he's walked in. He has to take the job because it's an exciting opportunity. But if you said earlier, who's the captain of that team? Masood is not a captain, in my opinion. That's no shade on him. I don't know who the hell the captain is on that team.
I think Shan Masood is a captain. Nobody at Yorkshire ever says he's not a captain. When he captains Yorkshire, he's fine. But because everybody else sees themselves as leaders in that team, I think it's a very hard side to captain and coach because there are so many strong personalities in there who are certainly not used to any stability.
From what? Well, the only one personality to deal with that is be like Alan Border, and I don't think Masood is anything like that. I don't think any captain's like that. No nonsense, no BS type captain. If you don't do it, you won't ever play again for Australia. I think. Look, maybe Rizwan. I think Rizwan is mainly their voice. He talks a lot. He's always in those huddles. But the bigger picture is their performance and their batting lineup. They're all over the place. But Barbara Azam was one hell of a cricketer. But in my opinion, he's benefited on these pitches. He's raised these stats up, and every time a ball does something, moves off the seam, swings, he capitulates. We saw that in Australia. We're seeing that here. And I don't know, keyword what you mentioned, identity. I don't know what the hell their identity is. Australia, ruthless aggression. India, same thing. England, Bazball approach, win at all costs. We don't play for draws. I don't know what Pakistan's identity is under this. Now, in the Bangladesh series, well, let's go before that. Making absolute roads. The Australian Test series 2 years ago, if it wasn't for Mitchell Stark's reverse swing, that would have been a 0-0 draw after 3 tests. Would have been the most boring Test series in history. Right? Bazballs came in. You had an earlier message by a fan that's watching, said that England probably the only team that would have won that Test match. Agreed with that, because that's the way they play. That's their identity. I don't know what Pakistan is. I think politics runs that show. Ramiz Raja, his commentary on the Pakistan players are disgraceful. Absolutely disgraceful.
I was going to come on to Ramiz because I was actually a little bit shocked by some of the things that Ramiz Raja said. He never gave any of the Pakistan players as far as I could see, any credit at all. He was criticising them left, right, and centre. I also saw a quote from Ramiz where he said, "You can't give pitches like this." And yet, only 2 years ago, when England were there, he was in charge of Pakistan cricket, and they were exactly the same pitches. So, kind of, why didn't you change that, Ramiz, when you were in charge? I know, journalists and broadcasters, myself included, if they see something wrong with something, you should say it, and you should be honest. But there didn't seem to be any balance at all. I mean, I don't. In terms of my view on England's performance in that first Test, there's probably only 2 real negatives that I saw, and they're only kind of small things. Ollie Pope getting out second ball, he must be gutted. He missed out on a big score because he pulled straight to mid wicket, a great catch, and he sat there watching his team build up 800 and whatever it was, 807. So he will be disappointed with that. And I thought Shoaib Bashir didn't do himself too much justice. Jack Leach came back into the team and out bowled him throughout the Test. But that's only really looking for something to find. Everything else incredibly positive from England, and I'll say so. Whereas if it had been boot on the other foot and England had been humiliated, we might have a few more negatives. So you say it as you see it, don't you? But Ramiz seems to have got a bit of a chip on his shoulder, something to, I don't know what it is, but he seems to have something that's festering inside of him, a bit of resentment there, and doesn't seem to be very happy with Pakistan cricket. I mean, to be fair to him, there is quite a bit to criticise with Pakistan cricket. And I always think with Mickey Arthur, I think he had 2 stints with Pakistan in the end, but the first stint with Mickey Arthur, I thought he was actually getting Pakistan playing good cricket, and they got rid of him. And I thought at the time he was bringing some youngsters in, he was blooding them, they were starting to create a culture which was looking quite good, and they got rid of him seemingly for no reason. His contract was coming to the end and they didn't renew it, and decided that the grass was greener somewhere else, and the wheels came off. And you mentioned Jason Gillespie taking the job. If you can get Pakistan cricket right, it's a massive population in Pakistan, like India. It's not as big as India, but it's a cricket-loving populace who are absolutely passionate about the game, and that passion, when things aren't going right, that passion spills over into probably too far into criticisms of some of the players. But if you can go in there and get them winning and win a World Cup or win a Test series and get them playing good cricket, you will be hailed as an all-conquering hero. So you can see the lure of a job like that. If you can turn it around and make it right, you can really enhance your credentials as a coach in that country, and they will absolutely love you. But there does seem to be a willingness within Pakistan, both fans that I've seen and certainly some of the media that I've read and listened to over the last few days, of giving them a real kicking when it's not actually that deserved. When one of the examples was Saud Shakil, he scored 87 in the first innings. I thought he batted quite sensibly, batted nicely. He didn't kick on and score a massive score, but 87 is not to be sniffed at. Most players, if you could offer a player 87 every time they went out there, they'd probably take it off you. but he got slaughtered by Ramiz. He got slaughtered by cricket Twitter for not kicking on and not batting fast enough. And you're thinking, well, it's horses for courses. You've got players in that side who are the enforcers and are in that team to bat quicker. South Shakil isn't necessarily that kind of. He's more your Joe Root, the glue that you bat around. And I thought he did his job nicely. So if you're criticising somebody for getting 87, obviously people that are failing more than that are going to get an absolute kicking, and that's not healthy for the team. And
that's what I mean by attitude. Pakistan, they seem to lose their marbles more than any country, but it also comes from the top as well. They seem to lose their marbles more than any other country. Like Ramiz Raja's commentary on Naseem Shah was disgraceful, where he said his reputation's on the line, bowling on this useless pitch. Well, mate, you had your go 2 years ago and you did nothing. Don't start having to go at fast bowlers and say, well, reputations are on the line. I thought Naseem Shah was fantastic with his efforts yesterday. Okay. Unfortunately, Babar Azam couldn't catch a cold in that cover position, dropped a dolly on Joe Root, and all of a sudden his reputation's on the line. Well, mate, I'm sorry, but that's just not good enough for a young bowler like Naseem Shah. Maybe I'm getting a bit emotional here because I'm a bowler myself, but that you don't say that. You don't say his reputation's on the line bowling when he came in steaming in, ball after ball, bowling at a high pace around the 137 Ks, 140 all day, getting smashed by Joe Root, getting smashed by Harry Brook. Babar Azam drops him, and you come out with a comment like that. I think that's absolutely disgraceful, and it's hypocritical because you had your turn, mate. You had your turn to do something about it. Now, Bangladesh series, they kind of changed that. Back, with Australia, with the draws of flat pitches, Bangladesh, they changed that. They made it a green top because I watched that series. They made it more bowling friendly. They got rolled by Bangladesh. Now, I said to you a week later, they'll go back to old ways. What happens? They go back to old ways and they capitulate. Mentally, there's no way they should have capitulated on day 5 like they did. That was an absolute disgrace. Masood could have literally got out 3 times in the space of 10 balls, the drop catches. No footwork, just mentally tired because they were arguing. Yes, they were on the field for 2 days, but so were England. England were on the field for 2 days. You didn't see Joe Root capitulate. You didn't see Zach Crawley capitulate. Ben Duckett capitulate. This nation, and this is no disrespect on them, but they are the worst when it comes to negative attitude. I've never seen anything quite like it. They turn on each other. The board turns on each other, and it has to stop.
People talk about England picking people on vibes and stuff. The vibes of Pakistan cricket are exactly what you've just said there, because I heard some of the commentators almost forecasting Pakistan falling apart in their second dig because they've done it so regularly. But if you start talking about that and putting it in the minds of the players, it happens, doesn't it? It kind of manifests itself. Just going through some of the Pakistan players. Sham Masood 151 in the first dig, Abdullah Shafiq 102. Obviously, everybody failed in the second dig, really, didn't they? But I thought a few of the players didn't deserve to be on the losing side. I thought Salman Argue with his 104 in that first innings, 104 not out. He batted well in the second dig as well, held them together this morning for 63. Ahmad Jamal, you mentioned Naseem Shah. I agree with you. I thought he bowled well. I thought Ahmad Jamal bowled really nicely as well, and looks a player that you can trust. So, what Pakistan need to do, rather than have these little digs at their team and say, he's at fault, he shouldn't be playing. Get behind some of these lads that are actually showing us signs of having what it takes and a little bit of heart and the ticker and the brain, and show a bit of trust in them. Because one of the things I've always thought of Pakistan cricket, you tend to follow your own team, don't you? And then you see a team like Pakistan once every 2 years or whatever it is, and it always seems to be so different. England will play a series against Pakistan, and there'll be a batter that gets a couple of hundreds. You think, well, he looks good. And then the next time you play them, no sign of him anymore because they've kind of got bored with him and they moved on to somebody else, the next flavour of the month. You need to show a little bit of trust with not, head coach, person in charge of Pakistan cricket, players. Show some trust. England may be taking that too far. Their central contracts, their trust in players. But got very few criticisms of England's selection policy at the moment because they're picking the right people. But Pakistan just go from one whim to another, and it's not consistent. It's not healthy. In terms of how you saw the pitch, I mean, it was a road, and it, as our correspondent suggested, Tim said, any other team would have probably settled for a draw on it. If I've seen other people suggest the best way for Pakistan to get something from this series is to put in a pitch which is more in favour of bowlers. So it takes away England's batting prowess and it becomes a bit of a bowl out. And Pakistan have got bowlers like Shaheen Shah Afridi, Nazim Shah, Ahmad Jamal, their spinners as well. Their spinner knew what he was doing, getting to hospital for the last 2 days, didn't he? Because he got out of the firing line. But anyway, hope he's well, by the way. That was a frivolous comment. But the roads don't seem to suit Pakistan because the teams that they play against are able to score as many runs as they are. Whereas, something with I said to you ages ago, if I was the head of Pakistani cricket, I would say, let's get some absolute pitches that rag from the afternoon of day one, turn square, because England's history against really good spin bowling overseas isn't very good. And, at least make it a bit more of a 50-50 contest. Whereas on the roads, England have just got too much, I think.
I think Jason Gillespie was probably responsible for that Bangladesh series when it was bowling friendly, because that just came from nowhere. So I think he had something to do with that, and then they've lost that series, and I think he's been overturned by politics. Now the next test is at the same ground, incidentally. Now, if you're watching that game, you look to the left of that square. There was that second pitch. That looked just as flat as the first one, and we know they're going to use exactly the same.
It'll be exactly the same.
They're going to use that pitch. They're going to use that pitch in the second test after what we've seen. So I don't know what to say to that, because you've just seen what happened. You've been embarrassed in that second innings. You had players turning. I'm not going to say turn against you, but huddles and arguing in that. And then you're going to make that exact same pitch what we saw, and it's just as flat. That makes no sense to me. And I think
if they played every Test match at Multan, Harry Brook, he's already scored. Was it 600s overseas? He's had 6 innings in Pakistan. Now he scored 500. Joe Root, obviously fresh from 262. Our conversations about how quickly Joe Root could chase down Sachin Tendulkar would be foreshortened, wouldn't they? Quite markedly, if every track was like Multan, because he would get centuries every week.
I love Nasser's comment. Nasser said, "Oh, you'll never see 700 again until next week when they play you again." I think that was a little tongue-in-cheek joke with that pitch that we saw on the left-hand side.
One of the things that England's approach does do to oppositions, I mean, Pakistan were bitten on the backsides by Bangladesh when they declared and ended up losing. And they could have got more than 556 or 558, whatever it was, in the first innings, because they kind of obviously got to 500 and then kind of hit out and lost a few wickets and got to their finishing total. They could have maybe eked it up to 600, maybe 650 if they'd batted a bit more sensibly towards the end of that knock. There is a danger, I think, in this series that if Pakistan bat first again, when would they declare? Because they will probably go on to get 800, 900 if it's that kind of track, because you don't want to give England any chance of doing the same to them again, because they've become the first team to ever score over 500 and lose by an innings. They don't want it. They don't want to do that 2 weeks in a row. So if Pakistan bat first next week, you can see them batting on and on and on and on and making an absolute guaranteed draw and taking away any, because if they their chance of winning when they got to, I thought 550 was probably a decent enough total. They needed to get a bit of luck in the field. They needed to probably bowl a bit better, and they needed to take their opportunities, which they didn't do. If they had done, and then it had been maybe a little bit more even Stevens or even a first innings lead in that test, they could have ended up winning. The chances of them kind of going down that route of being a bit more attacking next time are reduced by the fact that England have beaten them on the backside and Bangladesh did as well. So they're not going to declare, are they?
I actually disagree with what you said. I actually thought they batted sensibly in that first innings. Now, the last series where they played the first game, where England played them 2 years ago, they were erratic. They were trying to basball. And I remember you saying to you on this show that you're not going to see Australia do that. You're not going to see Australia try to basball. They're going to play their own game. And I saw Pakistan in that first hour play their own game, not go after anything silly, not try to blast the spinners out of the attack. And I thought, well, maybe a different Pakistan we're going to see. So I thought the first innings they batted brilliantly. It's just unfortunately when England had their turn, they capitulated. So I agree with what you're saying now. They're probably going to just bat on, make 800. But I thought they went about it the completely the right rate compared to last time where they just tried to out-baseball England.
Yeah, I won't disagree with any of that. I just think they're going to be ultra conservative now.
Yeah, of course,
that's not going to be a great watch, I don't think. If they get a similar kind of track, they're going to basically try and bat for 3 days and make sure the draw is on the cards. Should we finish off with a bit of a kind of cast ahead to that second test? Obviously, same surface. Or very similar surface, just next door in Multan. There's obviously with Pakistan. If I was Pakistan, I wouldn't lurch to wholesale changes of that team. I think they need to. Certainly, I don't think Jason Gillespie will drop Babar Azam or want to drop Babar Azam. I know he's not scored very many runs in the last 2 years, but he's still a class act. And on those surfaces, he should get big scores. So I think he'll get at least one more game. Whether the spinner's fit to kind of return after being ill remains to be seen. It's a very quick turnaround, isn't it, between the tests? But I don't think we'll see too many differences in the Pakistan side. The big question really in terms of selection is England, isn't it? If Ben Stokes is fit, he's been obviously training during the first test. He looks ultra fit other than his hamstring. When he was walking around with his shorts and his little muscle top on the other day, he looks lean, muscly, and very keen to get going. Looks in good shape. So I can see, him coming back in. He'll definitely want to come back in. I did see a suggestion that if he comes back in, it's Pope that will make way, but I don't see that. I think if Ben Stokes comes back in, he'll come back in the all-rounder slot, and it'll be either Wokes or Bryden Cast that make way for him.
Probably not a bad idea dropping Pope. He'll probably make 100 in the third test. So it's probably not the worst idea, knowing how Pope's career's gone. Stokes will come in for sure. I liked what England did. I liked Cass. I thought he bowled very well without luck in that first innings.
He had a really good debut, I thought, because I tweeted on day one, I feel sorry for him. This is his test debut, and he's got this to work with. But having said all that, he came out of it with his reputation enhanced, didn't he?
I thought his short ball game was fantastic. There was a couple of moments in that first test where, you got a bouncer, lob dive over the keeper, or just short of a fielder. I thought he bowled really well without luck. And then turned it around in the second innings, got his luck, got his reward. I thought Wokes, apart from his first spell, I thought Wokes was pretty ordinary, pretty average.
Go back to what we always said about Chris Wokes. Look at his home record versus his away record. His first wicket in the second innings, which kind of set the tone, was just a straight ball that kept a bit low. That wasn't him any wizardry from Chris. I just don't see why they've taken him because he doesn't perform overseas. He's one of the first names on the team sheet in English conditions, away from home in those conditions. I think there are better options for England. So if it was me picking England's team for the second test, it would be Chris Wokes dropping out for Ben Stokes to come in. But I agree. But some of that might depend on how they rock up in terms of their fitness and recovery, because it's been a tough 5 days for all of the players, from both sides. So Gus Atkinson, he might be knackered. I don't know, but if everything else is equal, my only change would be Stokes in, Wokes out.
I completely agree. And with Pakistan, I was disappointed. Apart from the arguing and huddles, the one person I was really disappointed was Shaheen Afridi. Now, there was once upon a time where he was top 3 in the world. He was a world-class bowler. Make no mistake about that. he's a different bowler these days. So I don't know what he's doing. If he looked, his pace is nowhere where it used to be. Nowhere near it used to be. I saw him bowling a spell when it was 2 over spells. He was bowling 126, 127. I was going on, what the hell is going on? If he's injured, he should not be playing, period. If he hasn't got the heart, he shouldn't be playing, period. Now, I'm not saying that, but he is nowhere near that bowler that we once saw, whether it's personal issues, whether it's injury, I don't know, but I think he should be dropped. He's doing absolutely nothing in this for Pakistan. Now, with Jason Gillespie being coach, well, I can tell you he's very loyal to his players. When he was coaching South Australia, he wouldn't drop anyone. It was literally madness. We were pulling our hair out saying, please, you make some damn changes. He was very loyal to his players. So I see him, you said probably give Azam one more time. I think you'd want Azam as long as it takes. But again, this is a country dominated by politics when it comes to cricket. So hypothetically, if Jason Gillespie said, no, I want Azam dropped, someone over top can say, no, he plays, where you got to go. But for me, Babar Azam and Shaheen Afridi do not look like test players for Pakistan, in my opinion.
And they should be the players that are actually leading their specialities. Babar Azam, is on paper at least the best batter in the Pakistan side. Hasn't been for 2 years, but should be. And Shaheen Afridi should be leading the attack. But I totally agree with you. The only trouble with this discussion, Lucas, is I don't know enough about Pakistan domestic cricket to know who's waiting in the wings. Is there a young tearaway fast bowler that could come in? Is there a batter out there that's scoring loads of runs? But I'm sure there is. I mean, if anybody from Pakistan's watching this and has got any suggestions on who should come in at cricket_badger on the Twitter, let me know who you would pick.
Yeah, Ramiz Raja made a point saying, well, Babar probably should be played. Sorry, Babar is playing on name and merit, not form. But he also said that there's no who you're going to replace him if there's no one coming through. That's pretty concerning. If you've got a player that hasn't made a run in 2 years, and you've got no one out there domestically to replace him, that's a real concern.
I can't believe that, Lucas. That Pakistan's a cricket mad country. There's got to be next cabs off the rank that people know about. I don't know of who they are, but there's got to be some. And this series might be in terms of the batting, might be a very good time to bring in a middle order bat to try them, because you're not going to get much of a better chance than to score runs at Multan, are you? So we'll see how that goes. But I mean, just to kind of round off, Ramiz Raja just does seem to just have it's a very prickly kind of view on Pakistan cricket at the moment. I think it's particularly a good listen, really. You want honesty, but you don't want somebody just kind of. Well,
if I was bowling for that long and I heard that comment from Ramiz Raja, I don't think I would be awfully impressed by that. I think I would probably want to talk to him face to face and tell him what the hell was going on. I just think that comment on Naseem Shah was too low. That was so low, because he tried his heart out. Naseem Shah. That's one thing you can't fault from him. And I just think that was pretty low by Ramiz Raja, who had his chance. Very hypocritical, but that's just my opinion.
Is there anything you've seen? I mean, I don't know what your series prediction was at the start of this, but anything that you've seen that has maybe changed your view of how this series might go? What would be your series prediction at the end of the 3 tests? Mine for the record was 1 apiece. So I thought it'd be 1-1.
For the record, I had before coming into this test match, I had 1-0. I thought there would be 2 draws and England win the last one or win somewhere along the line like Australia did. No, everything that I saw nothing really shocked me in that test match. There's nothing that I have got to add on that. Just if there are any English players or Pakistan players listening, just go to that left side of that pitch, just tread over it a couple of times, so we can get some.
This is an Australian talking. Yeah.
Just get the.
We all know how the yacht work.
Get the spike shoes on and just have a conversation with each other and just walk over it casually. Dig it up.
Do the twist. Yeah.
So we don't have to see that again, because if England don't win that match, we say this is boring. It's just a boring match. But having said that, if England were playing another side other than Pakistan on that pitch, I think it's a draw, because let's say for Australia, because I don't think Australia would capitulate like that. We've seen no evidence. I don't think India would capitulate like that. So that's.
I think we'll all agree there needs to be a little bit more in it for the bowling side.
Yeah. Definitely.
I mean, just once in a blue moon, seeing Joe Root and Harry Brook adding 454, I really enjoyed it. But I wouldn't want to see that every single week, because it would get a little bit monotonous, wouldn't it? It's nice to see the two Yorkies scoring runs and having a really nice time out there. But if you see 800 plays 550 every single week of Test cricket, you need, bowlers will just jack it in, won't they? They'll go off and do something else, because why would you? I don't think you could contest.
I don't think you could pay me any amount of money to bowl on that pitch. That's just stress factors galore. I'm surprised no one's came out with that. Well, it's actually taken down one player in a braid as a spinner. Best wishes to him. So you wouldn't pay me to play on that pitch. That's for damn sure. Just a nightmare to bowl on. But no, we're going to see the same pitch. We saw evidence of that. But someone go over it. Someone do something to that pitch when they dig it in. So surely.
So,
do the Australian way, James.
Second test starts on Monday again, doesn't it? I think we've not got too much time between the two test matches.
It's a quick turnaround.
Yeah. We'll be back with our review of the second test as well. So we will see you then, cricket badges around the world. Thank you to everybody watching on Garavayan's YouTube channel too. And thank you for your messages and for tuning in. And we'll see you again. Myself and Lucas will see you again after test match number 2. So have a good week. Enjoy the cricket, and we'll see you soon.